Morning came with a brown line on the horizon like a curtain someone pulled halfway. The air tasted like iron and dry clay. The outpost went to low draw as planned. Fans slowed. Non-essential lights went down to a soft glow. The canteen kept. Kettles hot and 2 trays of flat bread under cloth. Captain Mora posted the short message on Channel 6 every 20 minutes. Low draw, steady heart, watch the blink. The beacon to the south kept its patient rhythm, 1 long, 2 short. And between those notes the small extra blink where the safe curve bent around the empty pocket. Trucks checked in as they rolled. "We see the hint," one driver said. "Copy the curve," another voice said, holding at first rest mark, waiting for the tall wind to pass the ridge. Mora answered each with, "Steady and slow." Eli stood on the south catwalk and watched dust lift in ropes from the far flats. He felt the rail under his hand. He felt the small tremble the wind puts into steel when the air begins to grip instead of brush. He looked at the beacon monitor. In the bay every 10 minutes wrote the numbers and did not let his breath get ahead of the work. Sarah wore her cloak pinned high and her visitor badge bright. She walked the inside of the fence with Kip, counting steps, checking where barrels and crates could make wind shadows if they needed to. She marked 3 spots in chalk on the concrete, small circles with dots, then looked up at the sky and nodded to herself as if she and the weather were speaking in a slow language. By noon, the brown line was a wall. The first edge of the tall wind found the outpost and pressed, then pressed again. The fence sang a low note like a giant's bow across a string. Panels held. Hinges held. The siren did not scream. It lifted its throat and hummed gently so the tower could feel the breath of the place. Radio chatter changed as the wind stood up properly. Drivers used fewer words. They let the extra blink tell more of the story. "Blink matched," a woman said. "Cutting speed, moving to second rest." Another said, "Holding at 3 marks, sand like needles. We're good." Mora kept the replies short to save power and keep minds calm. In the early afternoon, the first small crisis came. The beacon curve on the monitor did not hiccup. It wobbled. The thin line that had been smooth as rope under a careful hand began to fuzz at the edges. Eli felt it in his fingers before he saw it with his eyes. The wind had found a shape that made the tower hum a wrong harmony. It was not failure. It was the kind of drift that grows if no one asks it to stop. Eli called it out. "We have a wobble," he said. Cross harmonics from the southeast. The tower is listening to 2 songs. Captain Mora walked to his side without haste. "Do we have a safe ask?" "Yes," Eli said. The plan arrived in his head like a tool he already knew the feel of. "We can make a soft echo to pull the tower back to the calm song. No wires. We use air. We hang lines across the yard like wind harps to set a clean note. We use the siren at a whisper to anchor it. We ask the tower to match our room again." Kip had half the gear in his hands before Eli finished the sentence. "Cables from the coil rack," he said. "Short runs, different lengths. Sand barrels as posts, I'm on it." Sarah touched the chalk circles she had drawn. "Here, here, and here," she said. "Set the barrels in a triangle so the wind turns a little at each dot. The echo will sit there and not slip." Mora nodded, once. "Do it, gentle hands. Keep the walkways clear." They worked like people who have practiced without knowing it. Kip and 1 guard hauled 3 heavy barrels and filled them with sand from the yard pile. Eli measured spans with his palm and a length of cord and tied cables between posts at 3 heights. He did not pull them tight. He left them with small bellies so the wind could teach them which note to sing. Sarah stood by the first chalk circle and closed her eyes for a breath, then opened them and lifted her palm a finger's width, up a little, down a little, until the line made the right, low sound. The yard changed tone. The wind harps began to hum, each a slightly different note. They did not fight. They made a chord like the one from the orb, only this time the instrument was the whole outpost. Eli brought the siren's throat up to 2%. The beacon monitor steadied. The fuzz on the curve thinned, then smoothed. Mora stood with her hands behind her back and watched the numbers straighten. She did not say good. She saved words for things that needed them. but her jaw eased. Trucks called in and said what people say when they feel a room become safe again without seeing why. "That's better," one driver said. "Blink is clean." Another, "Holding at the bend. Thank you for the steady hand." The wind climbed. It stopped trying small tricks and showed its full size. Dust rose in sheets that looked like rivers running upstream. The outpost leaned a degree and then found its feet in the old places it knew. The yard harp sang. The fence sang. The siren hummed its low breath. The beacon answered with the rhythm. People knew how to follow even when fear wanted to run faster. Mid-afternoon, a different problem arrived. It did not come from the sky. It came from the radio. A new voice, tight with policy, came on Channel 9. "Ravel Outpost. This is Central Labs. We have the artifact. We confirm a non-destructive response to human-mediated, low-amplitude acoustic stimulus. We request your raw echo profiles and beacon response logs for replication on other towers. Priority high, reply." Mora glanced at Eli. She pressed the button. "Central Labs, Ravel. Copy your request. We will share all non-invasive profiles and logs. Note, we have trucks in motion based on our hint. Maintain bandwidth. We will send in 3 packets." "Understood," the voice said. "Also." A pause, then a different tone as if someone else leaned toward the mic. "Our liaison reports your 12-minute completion under oversight. That was efficient. Good work. Labs out." Kip grinned and kept his eyes on his labels. "Tick impressed," he whispered to Sarah. Sarah's eyes warmed. "Circles like to be seen," she said, "even by people who speak in boxes." Eli and Kip pushed the logs in clean bundles, camera frames, breathmaker intervals, siren throat settings, beacon curves. No song, just the notes, so others could play it. He wrote a 1-page guide with lines like, "Ask softly. Stop if the line dims. Use air first." He did not sign his name big. He put it small at the bottom, with Ravel Outpost Team above it. Evening found them still on their feet. The wall of dust was not a single wall anymore. It was a set of tall rooms with doors you could move between if you knew where they were. The route hint carried people from door to door. Trucks called less. They saved power and trusted the blink. At sundown, the second crisis came. A heavy gust threw grit at the beacon like a handful of small stones. The tower did not bend, but the sensor hood on its third ring twisted a degree and stuck. The monitor curve jumped. The extra blink was late by 1 slow count. The danger was not that ships would lose the lane. The danger was that the slow trucks would try to keep the beat by guesswork and tire themselves at the wrong time. Eli saw the twist on the hood. He did not have a ladder tall enough to reach in this wind. He did not have a drone he could trust. He had air and sound and time measured in breaths. "We need the hood to move," he said. "A little. Not a lot. Like loosening a jar without opening it." Sarah flexed her fingers and looked at the harps. "We can pull from the ground," she said. "Ask the wind to put a thumb and then let go." "How?" Kip said, ready to run. Sarah knelt by the chalk circle nearest the tower's line. She poured sand in a small ring and set 3 empty canisters on their sides, mouths facing the tower. "These will gulp and sigh when the gust hits," she said. "If we time it with the siren throat, the sigh will lean on the hood at the right moment and take its stuck pride away." Mora raised one eyebrow. "Try it. Record it. If I say stop, stop." They set 6 canisters, 2 at each circle. Eli stood by the siren panel with his hand on the dial. Kip watched the beacon curve and counted. Gust every 9, 8, 12. No, 9 again. He found a pattern in the chaos the way careful eyes do. "Ready?" The next gust came with teeth in it. Dust slapped the panels and tried to go inside. Eli lifted the siren throat to 3% at the last half-beat. The canisters gulped and released a soft, low sigh. The sound was not loud. It was the kind of sound a person makes when they set a heavy bag down with care. The tower felt the shape of the room's breath change. The stuck hood gave a tiny twitch. The extra blink landed closer to true. "Again," Sarah said. Calm. They did it again. Gust, throat, sigh. The hood moved another hair. Kip kept count. Closer, he said. 2 more. They did it twice more. The hood settled back into its notch with a click no one heard but the beacon itself. The curve on the monitor smoothed. The extra blink landed on time, like a friend who says, "I am here," at exactly the moment you needed to hear it. Eli let his hand fall from the dial. He felt his pulse in his thumb. He did not show it, he wrote the numbers. "Log the canister, Sci," he said. "Name it Gentle Unstick." Kip wrote exactly that and underlined gentle because it kept being the right word. Night fell heavy. The wind did not tire. It changed shape, as if it had heard the outpost's song and decided to answer with a long, low note of its own. The yard harps sang without strain. The siren held the room's breath at 2%. The beacon carried the blink. The trucks moved from rest to rest like walkers who know where the benches are. The dust world of Revel looked calm from a distance like a sleeping red ocean. Up close it was different. Wind pushed thin waves of grit across metal walkways and against the sides of the border outpost. The outpost stood on short legs like a careful animal. Its skin was solar glass and patchwork plates. At night, soft blue lights traced the edges so supply trucks would not crash into it. Eli walked the evening patrol with a small toolkit on his hip and a coil of insulated line across one shoulder. He was not a soldier. He was a technician who liked quiet machines and honest math. Patrols were part of his job because the outpost did not have enough staff. He checked hinges. He listened to pumps. He watched the meter at the water yard because their tanks were old and the gauges stuck halfway. He liked to hear the station breathe, fans, relays, the small click of a pressure valve waking up for a second and going back to sleep. It told him what would break before it broke. The sky had that copper color that meant the winds would rise after midnight. The beacon to the south blinked steady. 1 long flash, 2 short, a pause. Good. Ships could still find the lane. Eli reached the water yard and paused. He lifted his head like a person who hears his name in a crowd. The pumps hummed as always, but there was a faint sound under them. A small, dry tap-tap as if someone moved carefully on the gravel. He turned off his headlamp so his eyes could adjust. The blue walkway lights were enough. Dust shifted near, the far tank. He did not move closer at once. The outpost rules were clear. If you saw a shadow that should not be there, you called it in and waited. The holding cells were overfull, though, and the doors did not seal right anymore. He had fixed them twice already. They needed new parts the budget did not have. "Hello?" Eli said, voice low and even. "If you are thirsty, I have a tin cup. I can set it down and step away." Silence. Then a figure lifted from the darkness like a careful leaf. Small, wrapped in a pale travel cloak, hands open, palms facing him to show nothing was inside. A narrow band at the throat reflected the walkway light. The figure took 1 step forward and stopped. "Water," a soft voice said. The word was careful, like a stone set down on a table. The voice tried another word and failed. A small device in their hand blinked a weak green and went dark. "Translator?" Eli asked. The person nodded. In the pale light he could see smooth, fine features, a soft pattern on the skin like the shadow of leaves. The eyes were large and steady but tired. The cloak was dusty and torn at one edge. The traveler stood very still, as if sudden movement might break the moment. Eli set his toolkit down, drew the tin cup from the strap, and filled it from the auxiliary spout. He stepped back 2 paces and placed the cup on the walkway. The traveler bowed once, quick and neat, picked up the cup and drank in small measured sips. No spilling, no greed. When the cup was empty, the traveler set it back in the same spot and bowed again, deeper this time. "Thank you," the voice said. "I am Sarah." The translator flickered enough to carry the name clearly. "I'm Eli," he said. "Technician, you are near the water yard. The yard is guarded by cameras. The cameras do not always work. Tonight they work." Sarah's hand stayed open. "Register?" she asked, touching the band at her throat, then shaking her head with a small, worried look. "No." The outpost had a simple rule for unregistered travelers: detain for review. But Eli saw the way Sarah's shoulders angled toward the fence gap on the east side, the way she kept glancing at the sky like someone measuring time against wind. It had the feel of a person who was running from a storm, not from a crime. "Are you alone?" he asked. Sarah lifted 2 fingers, then pressed them together, then separated them again, as if to say, "I was with someone. Now I am alone." The translator did not find the words, but the hands carried meaning. She held up the small device. "Break," she said. Words. Few. Eli knelt and picked up his cup. "There is an exit toward the east," he said, "behind the windbreakers. There is a blind spot where the old camera used to be. It is not safe to run there when the patrol drone comes around the corner. The drone looks down just once. If you wait for the drone and count to 500, then go, you will be clear." Sarah seemed to understand counting. She touched the throat band again. "Hold." He shook his head. "I am not going to hold you." Her eyes softened, a surprise, like a small light turning on. She looked past him at the outpost wall, at the panel where the warning siren sat quiet. Her gaze returned to him with a question he could not read. She took a step closer, slow, careful, and lifted the broken translator with both hands as if offering it. Eli did not take it. He had learned not to reach too fast with new people. "Keep it," he said. "You may need it more than I do. I can try to repair it later if you come back." Sarah nodded and drew a faint shape in the air with 1 finger, a circle, then a small dot in the center. She placed that invisible sign above her heart and bowed again. Then she pointed to the east fence. Her hands shaped a path. Up, over, down. "Wait, go." "Yes," Eli said. "That way." He stepped back another 2 paces and turned his headlamp on, aiming it toward the west so its light would not mark her path. Sarah slipped along the tank shadow like a stripe of night and reached the windbreakers. She crouched by the fence and watched the sky. The patrol drone hummed in from the northwest, passed and hummed away again. She waited longer than he would have. When she finally moved, it was swift and silent like water finding a crack. The fence did not make a sound. She was gone. Eli stood for a long breath. He filled the cup again and drank this time. The water tasted like clean slate. He picked up his toolkit, then paused at the sand where she had stood. A small, neat print marked the dust, 3 toe ends and a heel like a smooth oval. Next to it was a fingertip drawing, a circle with a dot in the center, the same sign she had traced in the air. It was simple and careful, as if it meant something. He shook the dust from his boots and made his way to the monitoring room. Kip, the night logistics operator, was there with a mug of tea and a stack of shipping forms. Kip had a round face and steady hands. He liked to press labels on crates so they lined up perfectly. "You look like you swallowed a riddle," Kip said. "Just checking the yard," Eli said. He opened the incident log on the screen and typed, "Unverified shadow near tank 3. No damage. Perimeter checked. Cameras reset." He could have typed trespasser. He did not. He saved the log and leaned over the grid panel. The power curve for the outer lamps dipped twice in the last hour. He made a note to check the relay. Kip chewed on his lip. "Captain Mora will ask if anything unusual happened. She always asks after sunset." "I gave her an answer in the log," Eli said. Kip accepted. That rules were a map. The map did not always match the land, but it was better than guessing. He slid a fresh form under the clip and aligned its corner with the table line. "The forecast bot says the winds will be sharp tonight. Might shave grit off the north face. We should seal the west maintenance hatch," Eli said. "Its gasket is weak." "I can send Kalen," Kip said. "I'll go," Eli replied. "I'm out anyway." He checked the coil on his shoulder and stepped back into the night. The outpost skin sang a soft, even chord in the wind. The beacon to the south kept its patient code. Eli reached the west hatch and ran his hand around the rubber seal. Dust had dried it. He sprayed conditioner and pressed the edge until it lay flat again. He turned to leave and felt a tremble through the walkway. Not wind. something in the power bus switching. He knelt and put his ear to the rail. A faint click stream tapped against the metal like rain at a great distance. This was not normal. He traced the line toward the small tower where the outpost's public siren sat on a steel post. The click stream grew slightly stronger, like a whisper trying to become a voice and failing. He opened the tower box and looked inside. The siren's test light was off. The backup battery showed 90%. But the diagnostic port, which rarely spoke unless you asked it a question, blinked a thin, tired pulse on its own. 3, pause, 1, pause, 3, pause, 2. He wrote it in his small notebook. Somewhere, a sensor was waking and sleeping and waking again. Eli closed the box, slid the latch, and stood watching the copper sky. He thought of Sarah counting that long count, moving when the drone was far. He wondered if she had made it beyond the low ridge to the east, where the old road fell into a dry creek. He did not know her path, and he did not need to know. He had made a choice that matched his own map of the world. Kindness that cost little could save much. He returned to the main corridor and washed the dust from his hands. Captain Mora came in as he was drying them. She moved like a person who always had more to do. Her uniform was neat and plain. The only decoration was the small silver badge that meant she had kept a post open for 3 years without a major incident. "Evening, technician," she said. "Anything unusual?" "The west hatch seal was weak," Eli said. "I resealed it. Grid dip on the outer lamps. I'll swap the relay in the morning." She studied his face with that quiet way she had, as if reading print behind glass. "All right," she said. "Forecast says we might get a red band warning after midnight. Make sure the siren line is clean." "It's clean," he said. He did not mention the faint diagnostic pulse. It was not an error. It was a heartbeat. Mora nodded and moved on down the hall. Kip caught up behind her with a report stack. Eli stayed at the red stormwatch did come near dawn, just as the small screen warned. It was not the worst kind, but it was not light either. The wind rose in hard steps. Dust slid like fast water between the legs of the outpost. The public siren stayed quiet, because there was no need to call people into shelters yet, but the pre-alarm tone kept a slow pulse through the early hours to remind everyone to take care. Eli and Kip moved like a practiced pair. Kip watched the intake gauges and kept the paperwork dry and flat. Eli walked the lines with a hand on each rail, feeling for heat and strange shiver. The outer lamps dipped twice and held. The beacon to the south lost one short blink, paused, too long, then caught its rhythm again. Captain Mora stood by the radio and kept her voice calm and simple for any truckers on the lane. By full day, the surge had passed. The sky turned a clear tin color, bright and thin. Dust settled to short, silent drifts in the yard. People came out to sweep steps and pick grit from door hinges. Eli made a list of small repairs with a pencil and a quiet face. He did not look tired, but he felt the way a wire feels after a heavy load. Warm, a little soft, a little aware of its own shape. The next day was for cleanup. The day after that was for checking what might break in the next wind. In the middle of this second day, a small figure in a pale travel cloak appeared at the east gate and stood very still. Kip saw her first on the camera and tapped the desk. "Eli," he said, not loud, not soft. "Your friend is back." Eli was at the coil rack wrapping a fresh line. He set the coil down and wiped his hands, then walked to the gate with a steady step. Captain Mora was already there because she moved faster than anyone when a rule touched a door. 2 auxiliary guards stood by the fence with palms out and open. They looked tense but not unkind. Sarah waited with the same quiet stillness as before. She had washed the dust from her face. The pattern on her skin looked like soft leaf shadow again. Her travel cloak was clean at the shoulders and still torn at the edge, as if she had fixed what she could and left the rest for later. The narrow band at her throat was brighter. The small translator in her hand had a new patch of wire and tape, and the indicator light was a steady pale green. When she saw Eli, her eyes warmed the way coals turn to flame when air touches them. She bowed with care. The translator carried her words, simple and clear. I ask for the one who opened the door. I'm here, Eli said. He kept his hands where she could see them. Welcome. Captain Mora stepped a little forward, pin neat as always. All visitors must register, she said. Name, origin, reason for visit, length of stay. Unknown technology must be inspected and held by the outpost until we understand it. That is the rule. Sarah listened with her head tipped in that careful way. She lifted both hands. In her palms lay a sealed round object, the size of a small fruit, smooth and pale like river stone. A faint light pulsed inside it, as if a tiny tide rose and fell there. The surface held a single dot at its center, not ink, not paint, but a soft piece of itself. I bring a circle gift, Sarah said. She placed her forefinger over the dot and pressed very lightly. The dot brightened, then dimmed again. A circle begins, then returns to center. Kindness given moves and comes back. Not trade, not price. Circle. Captain Mora's mouth made a small line. She looked at the orb, then at Sarah, then at Eli. Her eyes held question and duty at the same time. What does it do? It remembers paths, Sarah said slowly. It gives small light to tired lines. It helps a voice reach where wind is loud. It is safe when the hand is calm. Unknown devices are logged and held, Mora repeated, but her tone turned less hard at the end. We inspect in the repair bay. Eli, you take point. Kip, record. Guards, stand by, but give space. Sarah did not flinch at the word held. She looked at Eli, and the translator softened her voice. He is the center, she said, touching the dot again and then pressing her palm over her heart. He opened a door without cost. The circle returns to that hand first. Eli did not point to himself. He only nodded once. We will test. Safely, he said. No harm, no rush. They walked together to the repair bay. The room was clean and quiet, with a long table, a mesh shield, and several small meters that Eli liked and trusted. Sun through the roof glass drew a square of light across the floor. Dust drifted in it like quiet snow. Kip set a new sheet on the clip and wrote the date, time, and a simple title. Unknown device. Visitor Sarah, circle gift. Captain Mora stood at the door with her hands behind her back, not in a threat, but in a posture that said she would carry both blame and praise if needed. Eli laid a thin cloth on the table because he liked to treat unknown things with respect. He gestured to Sarah. May I look? Sarah placed the orb on the cloth with both hands and let her fingers rest on it for a breath. Then she took them away. Yes. Up close, the orb looked like stone and yet not stone. Its skin held no seam. Its weight was more than its size suggested, like a dense fruit full of juice. You could not see. When Eli put his palm near it, not on it near it, he felt a tiny push and pull as if a soft tide moved between the orb and his skin, not strong enough to be heat, not cold either, just presence. He took out his low-voltage meter and touched. The probes to the mesh next to the orb, not to the orb itself. The numbers moved a little as if a breeze touched them. He marked them in his notebook. He took the small magnet rod and held it at different angles. No pull. He turned on the wide-band listener, a box that made hidden hums into soft sound, and set it next to the orb. The speaker made a faint, pleasant tone like glass ringing far away when someone sings nearby. Kip wrote in neat small letters. Weight heavy for size. No magnet pull. Emits faint tone, steady, harmonic. Captain Mora watched without speaking. Sarah stood with her hands folded. Her gaze did not leave the orb. She looked like a traveler who has reached the place that called her but does not relax until the door opens. Eli glanced up. Sarah, may I touch it with one finger? Yes, she said, if your hand is calm. He smiled a little. I can do calm. He placed his forefinger on the dot. At once, the faint tone in the speaker changed. It did not get louder. It gained shape. The single note became a slow chord, gentle and layered, like three threads passing over one another without knots. The light inside the orb brightened and then fell to an easy rise and fall, as if the orb had decided they were in a room where it could breathe. The repair bay lights did something odd then. They smoothed. The tiny flicker you never see until you stare at a light for too long went away. The room felt like a lake on a day without wind. Kip stopped writing and looked up. "Did you see that?" "I felt it," Eli said, voice quiet. Captain Mora's face did not change much, but the line at her mouth softened. She did not step closer. She did not step away. Sarah lifted her repaired translator and touched the side, and the device gave a clean tone. "Circle gives small strength to tired lines," she said, "but it does not like force. If you push, it goes dim. If you ask, it speaks." "What does it speak?" Kip asked. He sounded like a child trying to be formal. He cleared his throat and held his pen over the page again. "It speaks in simple marks first," Sarah said. "Then in longer paths if trust grows." Eli pointed to the mesh shield. "I want to try a gentle ask," he said. "No plugs, no open power, just a light signal from the listener coil. If it is not happy, we stop." Captain Mora gave one nod. "You have 10 minutes before I log the device to storage as the rule says. If we see harm, we stop sooner." Eli set the wideband listener to reverse, very low. It would emit a soft, harmless pulse, like tapping a glass of water with a fingertip then waiting for a ring. He set the interval to slow pulses like a calm breath. 2 seconds on, 3 seconds off. He held his finger on the dot again to let the orb know the same hand that opened a door was here. He did not know if machines cared about that kind of thing, but he liked to act as if they did. The orb brightened with the first pulse and dimmed with the space between. After 5 pulses, it did something new. A thin line of light formed under its skin and moved, not around the surface, but through its center like a path in a small planet. It drew a circle, then a short line to one side, then a second circle, then connected both circles with a slow curve. Kip leaned forward and forgot his pen. "It is drawing." Sarah smiled with her eyes. "Marks," she said. "Simple first." Eli watched the pattern. He placed the orb closer to the mesh shield and lifted the shield between it and the rest of the bench. He did not know what the pattern meant. He did know it felt like a map. The circles were not perfect. One was slightly larger, one smaller. The line between them curved around an implied obstacle. The kinds of details you see when you watch wind move dust around a stone. He glanced at the bay lights again. Still smooth. He glanced at the power line monitor on the wall. The curve of the current held steady, with a whisper of reduction in noise. He wrote the numbers. He did not trust one moment to tell the whole truth. He liked a small stack of moments. Captain Mora tried to stand like stone, but even she leaned in by a finger's width. "What are the circles?" Sarah reached for the translator. It carried her voice soft and slow. "Safe points," she said. "Places where tall wind breaks low. Places where machines can breathe." Eli tapped the bench near the orb with one knuckle, once. The orb's line traced a second pair of circles, and the new mark stayed on the orb like a quiet thought that would not leave. 3 circles now, not 2, with a long curve bending like a shoulder around an empty space. Eli stood very still and let his mind catch up. He did not try to guess fast. He let the shape speak first. Sarah stood at the doorframe with her palm against the metal. "It hears the tall wind turn," she said. Her translator made the words clean but soft. "The path is not the same as yesterday." Kip slid a fresh sheet onto his clip and drew the mark as best as he could, careful and slow. He was not an artist, but he loved true lines. 3 safe points, he murmured, writing underneath. 3 circles. Long arc. Empty pocket between. Eli pulled the wall map from its clip and laid it flat on the bench. "If the left circle is us," he said, "and this long arc is the lane, then this empty pocket is the place where storms throw dust up in pillars. That's where trucks turn back. If the path bends around it, a slow convoy could still pass." Sarah's eyes warmed. "Yes." He touched the map with the back of his knuckle, never the tip of a finger when he wanted to keep paper clean. "Let's ask again." Gently. He set the wide-band listener to that slow breath pattern and placed his forefinger on the dot. The orb brightened, not brighter than the room, only more certain. The faint chord in the speaker shifted, one note up, one down, like two voices moving to meet in the right place between them. Under the skin, a thin line moved and drew a new curve that linked the second and third circles, with a tiny loop at the end. Kip forgot to write again for a second. It's finishing the thought. Sarah moved one step inside, then stopped, respectful of the mesh. It draws roots the way we teach children to tie rope, she said. Loops that will not slip when wind pulls. Eli was about to ask another small question when the radio in the hall clicked and hummed. Captain Mora's voice came first, even and calm. All channels, this is Ravel Outpost. Go ahead. A new voice answered, clear and a little proud, the way people sound when they know they have authority behind them. Ravel Outpost, this is Central Salvage Liaison for Region South. We have received your neutral report on an observed stability effect. Thank you. A team will arrive within 24 hours to secure and transport the unknown device for thorough study as per policy. Please seal the device in a crate and hold for collection. Do not apply further stimulus. Acknowledge. Kip's pen stopped dead. He looked at Eli, then at Sarah, then at the orb. Mora did not even draw a breath that anyone could hear. Central Salvage, this is Ravel. Acknowledged receipt. We will hold the device and maintain safety. Thank you, Ravel, the voice came back. Docking slot tomorrow at 14 Uri. Team Echo 7. Paperwork follows. Central out. The radio clicked to silence. The room felt different. Not unsafe, just smaller for a breath, as if the walls had leaned in to hear and stayed a little too close. Sarah's hands folded at her waist. She did not speak right away. Her eyes went to the orb, then to Eli's hand still resting lightly on the dot. Team Echo 7, she said slowly, tasting the word with care. They will use gloves and boxes. They will use words that lock. Captain Mora stepped into the bay and closed the door with a soft click. She did not raise her voice, she did not have to. You heard, she said. We follow the law. We do it in a way that keeps people safe. We do not pretend the message did not come. Eli took his finger off the dot. The chord in the listener drifted back to the simple tone. The light inside the orb fell to a low, steady pulse, like a sleeping heart you can see under thin skin. He folded the mesh down halfway and set the towel edge straight as if neatness could keep courage neat too. What happens if they take it? Kip asked. The question we all ask even when we know we will not like the answer. Will the roots stop? Will the light go out? Sarah moved all the way into the room now. She did not touch the table. She stood where Eli could see her and the orb at the same time. The circle gift opens to a center, she said. It chooses the first calm hand that does not ask for price. That hand becomes a bridge. If the gift is taken in a box and moved away, it does not break, it goes quiet. It keeps its light inside. It waits for a center to return. How long does it wait? Captain Mora asked. A long season, Sarah said. Sometimes 2. A season of what? Kip asked, pen ready. Sarah looked at the window and the pale sky. Of wind, she said. Of dust. Of people needing paths. She looked back. Of everything. Silence made a shape in the room. No one rushed to fill it. Eli pressed his thumb and forefinger together, a small habit to keep his own center steady. The practical thought came first. Then we do what we can before they come, he said, carefully and in the open, not in secret. We ask the orb to share the simple marks it already wishes to show. We record them. We leave no mark that we cannot explain. We do not open it. We do not force it. We let it speak. Mora looked at him a long second. You want to mirror the routes to our wall maps and beacon logs, she said, not as a question, as a line. I want to help our beacon hum in the right time when the tall wind comes, Eli said. I want the slow trucks to have a safe shoulder to walk around the empty place. We can do that with only breath pulses and a camera. He touched the wide-band listener, the most harmless machine in the room. No wires, no power draw it doesn't like. Mora allowed a very thin smile. the kind that hides where the eyes cannot see it but the air can feel it. "All right," she said. "You have this day. Keep it gentle. If the team walks in and asks what we did, we tell them the truth and show them the tapes." She looked at Sarah. "Sarah, will you help explain if they press us?" Sarah bowed once. "Yes," she said. "I will speak in circles if they speak in boxes." Kip laughed once under his breath and then stopped, respectful again. He wrote, "Before arrival. Mirror simple marks. No force. Full logs. Sarah present." They began at once. Eli set the camera to record the orb's skin close-up. He aligned the lens using 2 small pieces of tape so the frame would not drift. He checked the power line monitor again and wrote the steady numbers. He breathed slow and deep because the orb seemed to like steady breath. He placed his finger on the dot. The chord changed quickly this time, like a friend who recognizes your step and opens the door before you knock. The stripe of light under the skin drew the 3 circles again, then the long curve, then small ticks along the curve like short, careful footmarks. The ticks had rhythm. Long, long, short, short, long, long space. Eli did not know what the rhythm meant. He did not need to know yet. Kip recorded each frame count and the time. Sarah listened, with her head tilted. "Intervals," she said softly. "Places where wind rests. Places where a slow engine can cool and a person can think without grit in their eyes." The chord quivered, then slid down a note. It was not sadness. It was like a hand on a table to steady a cup that might spill. The orb drew a 4th circle, off to the side, not on the rote but watching it. Then a thin line reached from the dot up to the ceiling and stayed there for 3 heartbeats. "What is that?" Kip whispered. Sarah lifted her own translator, which now sat firm at her throat thanks to the brace Eli had made. She spoke one word in her language, then another. "Slow." The device tried, missed, tried again, then found something close. "Witness," it said. "The gift asks if the witness is still here." Eli's hand went very soft against the dot. "I am here," he said. He did not know if words mattered. He let his breath be the answer. His breath held steady, and the chord steadied with it. The orb began to draw marks that were not circles or curves. They were tiny clusters of dots, 2 close, 1 far, 3 in a row, then an empty space, then 4 like a tilted square. Eli saw stars, not the whole sky, a small patch. He glanced at the roof glass and then back. "It is marking its own place under the sky," he said. "Not just maps on our table. It is telling the beacon where it stands in a bigger frame." Mora stepped closer. She forgot to keep her hands behind her back for a second. "So if the salvage team pulls it out and moves it, it will know it has been moved." Sarah nodded. "It will close its lines until a calm hand opens them again." "Why me?" Eli asked, not proud, not fishing for praise, honestly curious the way he always was when machines taught him something new. "What is it that makes my hand the bridge? I only gave water and a door." Sarah's mouth turned in that almost smile. She did when she liked the shape of a question. "That is the path," she said. "The first center is set by a small true act that does not ask for a price. We carry these gifts across dry days. We watch many hands. Some hands help with heavy words. Some hands help with light that costs a person later. Your hand helped without asking for a return. The gift remembers such a hand." Kip watched Eli's face for signs of discomfort. Eli did not look proud or shy. He looked the way a person looks when a bolt fits threads with no noise, relieved that the shape was right. The orb suddenly brightened and went still. The cord thinned to almost nothing. For a blink, Eli feared he had asked too much. He took his finger away. He did not speak. He did not reach. He waited. Inside the orb, a single point lit. It was not the center dot. It was deeper, like a star, seen through clear water. The faintest sound came from the listener. No chord, only a pulse like a heart you could count. It matched Eli's own pulse for 3 beats, then moved 1 beat ahead, then came back to match again. Team Echo 7 arrived just after sunrise. The ship came down like a clean knife. Its hull was silver and without scratches. Blue letters on the side said Central Salvage, Region South. The dust wind curled around the landing pads and fell away, in neat rings, as if the ship did not like grit and told it to stand back. Captain Mora met them at the gate with 2 auxiliary guards. She did not carry a weapon. She carried a clipboard and a steady face. Eli stood a step behind her with Kip. Sarah stood to the side, visitor badge bright on her cloak, hands folded in front of her as if she held a note the room would need later. The ramp touched the ground. 3 people walked down. Their suits were soft and sealed, but not the heavy kind. They wore clear hoods so faces could be seen. The lead was a tall woman with gray at the temples and eyes that measured. The second carried a case with side handles and small green lights. The third pushed a thin cart with a folded frame on top. No lid yet, only rails, clamps, and foam. "Good morning," the tall woman said. "I'm Liaison Carvin, Team Echo 7. We'll make this smooth." Mora nodded once. "Captain Mora, Ravel Outpost. We like smooth." Carvin looked past Mora for 2 seconds and took in everything. Fence, panels, beacon tower, faces. "Thank you for your timely report," she said. "We'll secure and transfer the unknown device per policy 8.3.1. Please show us your chain of custody and logs." Kip had the forms ready. He handed over a neat folder with the top edge aligned to the corner of the case. "Observed stability effect," he said, using their phrase. "Gentle stimulus only. No invasive work. Full camera record." Carvin glanced through and made soft ticks with a stylus. She did not smile. She did not frown. She made the face of a person who counts carefully and believes counting is a kindness. "We'll verify," she said. "Where is the device?" "In the repair bay," Mora said. "Isolated, mesh shield. No hard links to our bus." "Good," Carvin said. She turned a degree to the side and looked at Sarah. "And you are?" "A traveler," Sarah said through the translator. "The circle sender." Carvin's eyes moved, not hostile, not friendly, curious, but held behind a policy. "You will also give a statement," she said. "But we will examine the device first." They walked to the bay. Eli opened the door and the room felt the way it always felt when the mesh was down and the listener hummed. Calm, like water without wind. The orb sat on its cloth. The towel edge lay flat. The camera was pointed, lens clean. The wide-band listener was on, but only his ears. Carvin stopped at the threshold. "Radiation?" she asked. "Only a soft acoustic chord," Eli said. "No fields above background, no magnetic pull." She made another tick. The second team member lifted a small wand and swept the room. The wand showed numbers with blue bars that did not reach the marks for worry. "Ambient safe," he said. "Proceed," Carvin said. The third team member unfolded the frame on the cart. It made a gentle box shape without walls, like a room, made only of corners. 4 carbon posts rose and clicked. A thin film lay folded between them. The person touched a control, and the film stood up and went clear, an air curtain, a soft shield, nothing hard. "Field cradle ready," she said. Eli kept his hands open and visible. "Before we lift it," he said, "you should know what we plan today." The forecast box on our siren line moved forward. Tall wind in about 30 hours, maybe less. We have mirrored simple route marks into the beacon already, non-invasive, but we can finish the echo sync in 20 minutes or less. It will help the small trucks pass the empty pocket when the wind turns. Carvin did not look surprised. "Your neutral report referenced calm route marks," she said. "Our policy is clear. You have done enough. The device goes now." Captain Mora stepped to the place between Carvin and the table. She did not block. She made a lane that bent. "Liaison," she said in a tone that carried yes and no at once. "You may take custody. But the region has already received our public route note, and the beacon is already humming a hint. We ask for a brief continuation, non-invasive under your eyes recorded, to complete the echo. No wires, no codes, only air taps and a finger on a dot. Carvin weighed the ask. Her eyes went to the orb. Her team could take it right now. Her team could follow the rule in a clean line. But the air outside already had that iron taste. The pressure had stepped down a bit in the night. The wind had learned the shape of the outpost and was drawing a map of lines to pull. Kip, who believed in truth and in small useful words, lifted a page. We can give you everything, he said, including credit. We will say under Echo 7 oversight. We will say monitored and safe. We will say no force applied. It will look good. The second team member smiled with his eyes for half a breath. Carvin saw it and her mouth tightened by one grain. She looked at Sarah again as if to ask a question she did not have a policy box for. Sarah did not step forward. She only spoke. Ask, not push, she said. The gift will answer. Carvin lifted a small clock from her pocket and set it on the cart. It projected a clear number into the air. She tapped it. 12 arrows appeared. You have 12 minutes, she said. Then we crate. If I see harm, we stop at once. If I call stop, you stop. Agreed? Agreed, Mora said. Agreed, Eli said. Agreed, Sarah said. Kip wrote agreed in a small box and drew a tick so neat it looked printed. Eli raised the mesh, slid the towel edge back to its fold, and placed his forefinger on the dot. The cord met him like a friend at a door. The orb brightened to that steady breath and drew the 3 circles with clean patience. Eli turned to the wideband listener and set the breathmaker to whisper. He did not turn on any wire. Carvin's clock began to count down. 11:59, 11:58. The beacon tower at the south edge made its usual low hum, but a high thread rode in it now, far off and thin, like a string someone plucked in a different room. Eli watched the monitor curve. It stayed smooth. Begin echo, Mora said. Eli tapped the breathmaker with his left hand, one long, two short. The beacon answered with a soft tremor. The orb drew the long curve and placed tiny ticks at new intervals. Sarah watched and nodded. Rest places, she said. Short shade. Cool breath. Carvin stood very still. She did not stop it. She watched like a person who weighs whether water in a pipe is going to flood a room or just fill a cup. 10:42. 10:41. The clock said. A low rumble came in from the east. Not the ship, not the fans. Outside, dust began to stand in thin pillars, far away, the kind that lean and then break and then stand again. The pre-alarm tone in the corridor gave one soft note and went quiet. The siren did not call, it only cleared its throat. Pressure drop, Kip said softly. He was not afraid. He wrote the number. The second team member touched Carvin's elbow. We could accelerate, he murmured. Field cradle can lift in 2. The policy. Carvin lifted 2 fingers and he fell quiet. Eli kept the breath slow. The cord stayed steady. The orb drew a 4th circle, small between the 2nd and 3rd. Sarah's eyes warmed. A new refuge, she said. It just found it. 8:03. 08:02. The beacon curve on the monitor hiccuped. Not failure. Something near it shouted in the wind and the metal listened too hard. Eli frowned and adjusted the breath interval by half a second. The hiccup eased. He did not say good. He said nothing. He let the curve say it. From the yard came a shout and a laugh. Someone had chased a tarp that tried to leave and had caught it. The wind pressed the west fence and then forgot it and pressed the south fence instead. The outpost changed the tune of its own hum to match. 6:29, 06:28. Carvin's third team member rolled the cart 2 steps closer to the table. She had work to do and a time to do it in. She did not hurry. She did not like being late. She looked at the orb the way you look at a delicate glass lens. Respect, care, cost. The orb's inner light dipped once. Eli lifted his finger away at once. The cord thinned. He waited for 2 slow breaths, then set his finger again. The light came back like a small tide joining a larger one. "Thank you," Sarah whispered to the gift to the room. 510-509. The wide-band listener caught a different tone at the edge of hearing, a low bear of a note, not from the orb, not from the beacon. Eli's face turned. "That's the front," he said. "Tall wind is closer than we thought." Kip looked at the siren panel in the hall. The green word said, "Forecast update, tall wind 24 hours, +6. He wrote the change. Carvin flicked her eyes to the clock and then to Mora. For the first time, she said a thing that was not a rule. "Make it count," she said. Eli raised his left palm. "Kip," he said, "give me the siren's throat, not the alarm, just the low voice. 2%. I want the tower to feel us breathing." Kip moved, fast fingers, calm head. The siren had a practice tone you could barely hear, a big instrument humming to itself to remember where its notes lived. He brought that tone up just enough to touch the air. The breathmaker and the siren began to dance. They did not step on each other's toes. They made a slow weave, like 2 lines of people in a small room agreeing to pass without bumping elbows. The beacon heard. The monitor drew a smooth hill. The orb answered by adding 5 fine ticks along the long curve. Sarah's hand lifted instinctively, but she did not touch until Eli tilted his head to her. "Will you add your finger?" he asked gently. "If it is all right." She stepped in and placed a fingertip on the dot beside his. The chord deepened, not louder, only richer,